All right, we are here with Kane Churko, sitting in lovely Las Vegas, which I miss dearly. Haven't been there for a while. How are you doing, Kane?
I'm doing excellent today. How are you doing?
Excellent. One of my first questions I wanted to ask you, and of course, if you want to go back, anyone that's listening, you're the third Churko I've had on my podcast. Of course, you had.
I listened to some dads. I didn't realize. I assume Corey was been on there. I didn't realize Corey had one too. That's fine.
Corey was number 2 actually, my second podcast, and he was coming through town with Shania, and I zipped up to Toronto, and we chatted for like 2.5 hours or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So and I had a great in studio chat with your dad, Kevin, and that was great. And here we are, number 3. So if those listening, make sure you go back and listen to those other podcasts. You learn a lot from them as well. But first question was, Kane Churko, where did the Kane come from? There's a background to that name?
Yeah, there is. Actually, my dad, Kevin, is a big fan of the TV series Kung Fu. Which the main character was Kwai Chang Kane.
Yeah.
So it kind of just literally came from there. It was not even, I don't think, intentional to be a K name, but in hindsight, my whole family, my immediate family is Kevin, Kemne, Kane, and Chloe.
Oh yeah.
All K names. Got my uncles and my aunts were Corey, Kelly, Casey, Kim. Yeah. So it's kind of just been a common thread to at least have K's or hard C's and on the Churko side of my family at least. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a Kung Fu reference, which I grew up watching with my dad, of course, too.
Cool. Do you know any other Kanes? Have you met any other Kanes?
You know, I've never actually personally met another Kane Kane, even though I know of some. I'm seeing it more and more.
Yeah.
As a name, kind of almost like in the generation after me somehow. But yeah, not a lot. When I grew up, I was the only Kane I knew, and especially with this spelling of Kane, everyone always would spell it, like the biblical way, or Cain or Cane or something like that. But
you always used to say, Kane with a K, and they all, what?
Yeah.
So you're in Las Vegas and enjoying life there at your awesome studio, which I had a great tour of. Great spot to hang out.
Sure.
And have a wonderful. I went through your studio there as well. Are you in the same spot?
Yeah, I'm in what's my control room, my usual control room right now, which is our C room.
Yeah.
And just basically streamlined for me. So it's all my personal gear, everything's set up. My patch bay, I can pull every patch on the patch bay, and it's all normaled, and everything's set up, inserts the way I want it, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just so I can move around really quickly. I find from growing up in like home studios and things, I find I just like a tighter, smaller space where I can reach to my left, play my keyboard, reach to my right, pick up my guitar, pull my mic down in front of me, sing some background vocals, kind of the spaceship sort of vibe where I don't need to even move my chair, and I can access and reach every control.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was younger, I liked having a big desk. Like anywhere I went, if I was doing studio work or live work, the bigger the desk, the better you felt. But the older I get, the tawnier I want. The less space, the more you can, like you said, the more you can grab around you. Just makes you way more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, we have obviously some extremely beautiful rooms here, and some big SSL rooms and stuff. And I don't use them as much as you'd think. Just really for that reason, I don't like sliding my chair around all day to turn something up or down on channel 1. I just like I think for me, my music process is more about keeping creative momentum and staying inspired. And I think being able to just constantly move quickly, it does that. When I run into things that slow me down, I start to lose interest, and the ADD part of me just can't stay focused. So I got to kind of stay doing something exciting constantly.
Yeah. So how many times have you reconfigured your setup where you are now?
This room I've kind of done about 3 different times in the last 4 years. We came from a custom spot that we had before this for like the previous 5 years, and that was like super streamlined, built. The build out was from the ground up exactly how we wanted it. So it was super custom, and I really loved that. Moving to this bigger facility. When I say bigger, I mean our old space was 1,400 square feet. This space is almost 14,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So it was quite a big upgrade, but at the same time, it took a lot of adapting at first, both because we were coming into, we bought the building with all the gear in it and stuff too. So we were coming into a bunch of gear, different desks, different setups, different things we can combine and try out to decide what we wanted and didn't want, and all that stuff. And only in the last couple months do I feel like I finally turned a major corner to dialing it more into how I want it.
Yeah.
A big part of it was the patch bay, and getting that totally just as dummy proof as I can. So if someone uses my room when I'm not here on the weekend or something, I can come in, just pull every patch. I'm set up again.
Yeah.
I'm not having to reconnect or anything. I got all my gear set up as inserts. I had a bunch of gear I didn't even have set up because I didn't have enough rack space where I wanted it. And now I got everything ready to go. And I love it. It's great.
You'll change it again.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I'm already thinking about it. I mean, there's constantly things that to me, I always struggled to find the workarounds for, and I find because I never grew up, maybe even in traditional studios, I use things a little differently, and there's a lot of things that traditional studios to me sometimes just don't make sense. A big one when I go into other big studios with like a board or an SSL kind of room, is when they have the computer facing to the side, and you're looking sideways while mixing, and so that's weird to me, but that's because I mix so much in the box, so I'm not thinking about the faders beside me. I'm looking at the the automation in front of me in the Pro Tools screen. So it's like, making sure your computer's right in front of you. Right now, for me, the big thing is I wanted to be able to reach all my gear, not have to like slide way over to the left side to use a piece of gear in stereo when I'm sitting in front of the left speaker. Even now, I feel like I wish I could get gear closer to me. Like I just want like maybe even a portable rack right in front of me would be nice.
Yeah.
Between me and the monitor, and play stuff like that. But trying to find the perfect desk for that is actually really tough.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to lean more towards trying to invent something or design something that's weird. And for me, it doesn't matter. I don't work with people that have to use my setup or use my stuff. I can have the weirdest, most unorthodox way of working as long as it works for me.
Yeah, because you figure a lot of that furniture you look at, it's made for a pretty general purpose situation. It's like almost going into a music store now. It's kind of geared towards just a normal person. It's not really made for someone who does really advanced stuff, right? So it's hard to find desks. I have 2 Slate Ravens
nice
in front of me, and the biggest change I did, and I bought their desk with the sidecars. So that works really nice. Everything's just right in front of me here, but right in front. But the biggest thing I did is up on top of that, I put I guess it's a 42-inch television as a monitor. And I saw a few setups like that. So, everyone's had a big TV monitor, and I thought, I don't know if I want to, that doesn't make sense. I have 2 screens already, and I like lots of screens.
Me too.
And so I bought a stand for a TV, and I was waiting. Well, what should I buy? And I was worried about it not running properly on my system and lag and all this stuff. So I had a TV on the wall just for watching stuff if I ever want to watch TV or I'm in the studio. So I just took it off, placed it right on the stand, and it's been here ever since. It's perfect. It's actually the right resolution for, it's not 4K, but it's the right resolution for my setup. It matches the monitors, the Raven monitors, perfectly. And
that's a good idea too, in tandem with the 2 Ravens, because that's I've liked that setup aesthetically with with the two ravens and the raven desk that they have. But I've never been able to pull the trigger because I can't get my head around sitting in between the split of the two screens. but
yeah, I know what you mean.
Your top screen at least would solve that, and
it does.
That would probably, you know, I should have thought about that when I was considering that, but right now I actually have just one of the smaller ravens, and then I have a nice widescreen right above that too. So in a certain sense,
it's kind of the same, yeah,
same kind of thing. But yeah,
I know exactly what you mean with the split, because when I first got them and put the two together, because I started with one and I got the other one and I bought this, and it's like at first I was like, oh, this is, I'm leaning always to the one monitor, right, to be in front of that one. And then eventually you just kind of got used to it and getting yourself back. Of course, you'd have to find center all the time, but yeah, the monitor front solves that. I keep that for my DAW and programming and editing, and I keep kind of the console portion of everything on the Ravens.
That makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah, and it works great. So let's go back. You're obviously a Canadian boy and a fellow Canadian boy, and so you were born in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I was born in Regina, same hospital as my dad, and I lived in Canada, mostly in Saskatchewan, until basically age 14, until I finished grade 8.
Yeah,
and then we moved to Switzerland, where I lived for almost all my teenage years, and then we made our way to the States after that, where I've been ever since. So
how young were you when you were getting into music? What were you playing first, and what was the first dive in there?
Yeah, no, I feel like, I mean, I was always around it, right? Because my dad and my uncle were in bands, since the time I was born, and before the time I was born. So, I was always around musicians, and I was always around bands. So that environment was a very normal environment to me. So much so that, as a kid, I didn't think of it as interesting or unusual or anything. It was just normal.
Yeah,
like being into woodwork and having all your family be carpenters, and it's you can whittle something, and everyone's like, yeah, whatever, I can do that too.
Yeah.
So for me, surprisingly, it wasn't until kind of later that I got into it as a musician, I suppose. I didn't start learning how to play guitar and until maybe I was like 12 or something. And I tried piano lessons and things like that, when I was younger. Never really got into it. Always kind of hated the structure of learning theory and just having to learn the boring stuff to get to the interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas guitar, I started that playing in Regina. I had a guitar teacher named Mike Vansha, and that was exciting to me. That was, I could go to one lesson. I went to my first lesson, learned how, asked how to play a Green Day song, and learned what a power chord was, and realized I could write any number of songs as long as I knew what a power chord was. Yeah. So even for me, when I went to guitar lessons, I almost just went for the information, so I could then go home and apply it to my own stuff.
Yeah.
The first thing I did was write a song. I wrote songs before I learned how to play other people's songs. Basically, it wasn't interesting to me even to learn other songs. I just wanted to learn enough to learn a new chord, to take that chord back and write my own song.
That's awesome.
And write my own song. So when I started playing guitar, honestly, within 3, 4, 5 months, I got an old 4-track recorder of one of my uncles that my grandpa still had, and I do this as if it's only a foot big, but it was probably 2 feet by 3 feet or something like that onto a cassette, and I started recording immediately. To me, it just made perfect sense. If you're going to write something, why wouldn't you want to capture it? Yeah. Or if you're going to create something, why wouldn't you want to capture it? So I wasn't even consciously being like, oh, I want to be a producer, or I even really understood what that meant. I just knew I liked making songs, and I wanted to be able to listen to them back.
And it's cool you had something like a 4-track to start on, right? You look back at it now, you probably think, thank goodness you had that opportunity. I suppose now you don't have that opportunity of starting on something that's gets you the fundamentals down really easy.
And it's still, you know, it taught me about multi-tracking, which was a really exciting idea. And yeah, especially I didn't grow up in bands and I've been around a lot of other music people my age. So for me, it was like, oh, I could put one track down and then sing it and then play something else on top of it and sing a background vocal and stuff. So that really excited me, that all I needed was myself to make music.
Yeah.
And there was really nothing standing between me and doing that in a certain sense. But then, you know, once you still had to perform good though, you know, I could play to a click or something in my headphones, but you know, it's not like I could just punch things one note at a time and put it together like you can now. And you know, so once I got into like the digital side, I think at one point I had like Cakewalk or something when I was when I was 14 maybe, and I realized I could take my 4-track demos on the cassette, dump them through my sound card into Cakewalk, and then move some stuff around and start like cutting and arranging and, you know, and things like that. And that was kind of, you know, again, a whole other just open your mind to what you can do. And, you know, I could start playing some synths to stuff in the box and, you know, whatever early things that might have had. But I started using Pro Tools, I guess by the time I was 15. I've been using Pro Tools for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer. All of a sudden to be able to program drums and use, what was I using at the time? Sample Cell, I think, to you know, to make instruments and put sounds in and make my own stuff, and just the potential was unlimited at that time. And even though lots of people still weren't fully in the box, and I think about all those early years of people being like, well, you can't really make a real recording just doing it like that. And that was kind of the sentiment for a long time. And now here I am, I feel like 20 years later, doing the same thing I was doing when I was 15, just sitting in front of Pro Tools by myself, moving notes around.
You're stuck in a vortex.
Yeah. Only somehow now it's okay. When back then it wasn't.
Yeah, there really was that weird time, right, where between people, you know, using their traditional form of recording on tape and then this transition of this new idea of recording via Pro Tools or whatever there was. And really at that point, there was a few different things, but Pro Tools was really the mainstay. I mean, they pretty well kind of are now, but there's not really as much as far as differences between most. They all kind of do the same thing. They're just
all different versions of the same tool.
Yeah, they just wrap it differently. You know, that's how I always say it's a different way of approaching the same thing. But
it was like back then when you were programming drums, it was like those had to be either the demo drums for when you record them for real later, or, you know, like somehow just people didn't accept things the same way. Whereas now people don't care. You know, some people do, but I think the consumer isn't concerned about whether the drum kit's programmed or not. They're just concerned about whether it sounds good or feels good. Yeah. And those sort of things. So I think we've shed so much now that it's nice to be able to just to not have as much bias, I guess, towards a tool just because it's a digital tool, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So obviously you mentioned you moved to Switzerland. Your dad got the gig working with Mutt Lange, and off to Switzerland you went. So what was that? That must have been a bizarre experience, probably for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, I guess, most bizarre maybe for me, just because of my age, I suppose. At the time, I went to I started going to public school when I was there, and it was all French speaking, and we lived in a French part of Switzerland.
Yeah,
I didn't speak any French, so I was starting grade 9, high school, not being able to talk to anybody, not being able to understand anything, sitting in classes, just not understanding a single thing people said. And that was tough. I mean, I did that for a year, and then I was like, no, I need to do homeschool or something. So I did Canadian homeschool after that first year, and that was a lot better. And really, honestly, that's what afforded me the time to get into using Pro Tools. We had every house in Switzerland and an apartment and everything have a bomb shelter in the basement.
I thought you were going to say that's Pro Tools.
No, I wish. No, they have a bomb shelter. They have a bomb shelter in the basement. So we had this small room, bomb shelter with a big, foot wide, probably steel door with the thing with the wheel you got to turn to lock yourself in. And I used that as my little studio music space. So starting then, I had that space. Dad brought a Pro Tools rig from Mutt's studio to the house.
Yeah.
And I'd wake up, do my Canadian schoolwork for 3-4 hours, and by 1 p.m. I was doing whatever I wanted in the studio, learning how to make music.
Yeah.
And that's really where it started. And I think Dad just kind of kept unrolling one piece of gear on me at a time. And so much of my education early on was really just me alone with one piece of equipment or two pieces of equipment, trying to figure it out. And then, every few days, Dad would come hear what I'm doing and be like, "Oh, did you know you can do this?" And show me, show me the next piece of information. But he really kind of let me do my own thing early on. So I think that's when I kind of really developed a lot of my own style, learned how to multi-track different things, learned how to play different things. Again, I was in a part of the world where I couldn't speak to anybody, so I still had no band people or other musicians to bounce things off of. It was just me, myself, a computer, and every now and again my dad.
Well, you turned out all right after that.
I mean, it was a tough experience at the time, just being a teenager, not able to socialize in a normal teenage ways that I expected to be able to by the time I was going to be a teenager. But in hindsight, I mean, that's what afforded me the time, the opportunity, even just the lack of other things to do instead of hanging out at, a 7-Eleven like every other North American teenager at the time. I was, sitting in front of Pro Tools, and nobody I knew my age had any idea what that was.
Well, you probably look back now, and I would probably guess that you were probably pretty happy you had that.
Oh yeah,
that time. Probably at the time you're thinking, oh gosh, but man, what a great learning experience. And you didn't have all those other distractions, and those are the things that really, I think, cause issues for people in their teens is maybe not being able to focus on something they really want to do. And there's too many, it's too easy to rush off to Netflix or all those things where maybe you have an interest with something like Pro Tools, but there's so many other things to pull you away from it.
Totally.
And when you're forced to kind of sit there, it's like having, going to an old hotel room that has 4 channels on the TV. You have to watch those 4 channels, right? So you're going to watch things you didn't think you were ever going to watch, but then all of a sudden you begin to like it, right? So yeah, it's certain. And I can relate. When I was younger and I was a teenager, we built a little studio here at the farm to do our family recordings, and it was just me, and I really didn't have anybody to ask questions. There really wasn't much. There was no YouTube at that point. So you just sit and practice and learn. And there's a skill there, almost like a troubleshooting skill you learn. There's multiple skills you learn because you had to figure it out on the fly and on your own. So now those skills really come in handy later in life.
It really was, in hindsight, kind of the perfect storm of good things that sort of set a foundation for me to do what I do. And even Pro Tools time spent at the time aside, doing the homeschool was a similar exercise where they were mailing me a book and some assignments to fill out, but I had to read the book myself. I had to, most of the time I couldn't even ask anybody a question about what I was learning. I just had to figure it out, send the work in, get it right.
Yeah.
So that it kind of applied to music stuff too, as I didn't have, tons of resources to find things out or ask. So it was just, well, let me get the Pro Tools manual out and read it. And what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I'm, I think that really made me a good self-starter. Just kind of, I'm good at just being focused on my own and following something through. And, I think that's really what it takes in a lot of ways, just still to be a producer and to spearhead something and then make sure it gets handed in on time and that everyone's happy and not lose your mind in the process.
Exactly. So obviously you came back from Switzerland, and where'd you find yourself at that point?
We ultimately settled in the LA area for about a year or a couple years, maybe, just about. And that was a whole other change. I mean, going from Canada to Switzerland was like so weird. Yeah. Coming back or even coming to the States was weird in itself too, because then it was the same extreme but opposite. All of a sudden there's just so much available and so much sensory input everywhere, and so many, all the food's bigger, all the cars are bigger, all the roads are bigger. Just traffic's insane. It felt like a different planet for sure. And I just continued on doing what I was doing at that time. I mean, Dad was making the transition from working for Mutt to trying to get his own production gigs out here. So at that point, I started working on almost everything he was working on. Even if he was just hired to edit some stuff, I was kind of editing under him, and he was, double checking my work and billing for his time rather than mine.
Here, I don't want to comp these vocals. You comp them.
No, totally. So, I mean, at that point I was, 16, 17, doing professional Pro Tools editing for labels and things like that. I even had an opportunity to work with Mutt for about 3 weeks when I was 17, doing some work on a Shania DVD. I was 17 doing 24-hour Pro Tools sessions. not like 24 hours with breaks, like 24 hours sitting at the computer while Mutt's popping in every hour beside you saying, move that over, move that over, move that over.
Yeah.
And all those things have been really just, again, so thankful for now. At the time, it's like I didn't know any kids doing 24-hour sessions of anything. But now, I mean, it makes a normal day seem easy when you've done all the hard days up front.
Yeah.
And I felt like in a lot of ways, I worked extra hard then to be able to endure things easier now.
Yeah. I mean, still lots of great learning, lots of great lessons, and it's like putting in those 10,000 hours type of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I would just, it seemed like then just technology was changing so fast too. There was really cool new things coming. I mean, computer plugins with synths and all that stuff were really developed really fast. And that opened up more and more for me. The better I can make something sound on my own, the more cool stuff I could do, because that's all I kind of had access to. And I just continued to make songs really just for the sake of, it's funny because I wasn't even like an artist, or I wasn't trying to be an artist, or I wasn't trying to be in a band, but I liked making songs. Yeah. So I recorded them. I didn't know anyone to play on them or anyone to sing them. So I sang on them and played everything and just created for the sake of creating them, really. I had, I think, a website around that time where I just put them up. It wasn't like, here's an artist page. It was just like, here's my personal website, some songs I worked on or whatever. Yeah. And, the story kind of got interesting there because, the long and short of it is there was a kid that found me on the internet, and loved my songs, and he wanted to hire me to make some songs like that for him. Huh. And I'd never done anything like that for anyone else. Yeah. So it was kind of like, I guess, my first production gig, songwriting production gig. And I guess I was 18, he was probably 16, and he came out and recorded 3 songs for him for like $750 or something. Yeah. And he went back home, and a few weeks later, I got an email from he had paid me with PayPal, and I got an email from PayPal saying I received some fraudulent money and they took it out of my account, and I it's like, welcome to the music business, right? And that kind of set the beginning of let's say 2 or 3 years of me actually dealing with this kid who ended up kind of impersonating me. Oh. And by that I mean he was taking my songs off my site, literally just putting them on his. It's me singing and everything, and he was all of a sudden launching himself as an artist with my own music.
Wow.
On iTunes, played on the radio. He put a band together. He was playing gigs. I had never even played a gig in my life.
Yeah.
Right. And here's this guy playing my songs with a band, saying these songs are his, saying these recordings are him, and it wasn't, and all that stuff. And because he was underage and I'm underage, we're both teens, and it was such a fantastic, surreal story. Even if I told someone like, "Hey, this kid's, impersonating me or frauding me," people wouldn't believe it. Yeah. It was like, "Oh yeah, like prove it. Where's your copyright notice that says he is?" And it's like, here. Well, then he got a copyright notice too. So then it's like, well, what copyright notice is the real copyright, notice? And it was just an ordeal. I mean, the kid would call my phone in the middle of the night and play my songs on the voicemail and stuff like that. Like it was weird stuff to be going through as a teenager. But at the same time, it ultimately is what started me to take my music seriously as an artist myself, because all of a sudden here's this guy ripping me off, saying my work is his, and I have no track record of even existing as an artist. Wow. So whereas he could be like, "What do you mean? How could I be lying? Because I played 5 shows and this guy's never played a show." And like I looked like the fraudster basically, and my dad wasn't even who he was, and just the internet wasn't as didn't have as much information for people to find out who people are and to see who's legitimate and not. And by the time I was 19, I ended up taking a gig in Dubai. Okay. To be a sound engineer in Dubai. I had a friend out there, and he got me a gig, and I moved out there with the intention to be out there for about a year. And about 5 weeks into it, I get a call from a manager in LA saying, "Hey, I've been working with this kid for 6 months. I've almost got him a record deal and a publishing deal, and he just admitted to me that all his music is yours." And he's like, "Where are you right now?" And I'm in Dubai, in the Middle East. "Why the heck are you in Dubai in the Middle East? You need to come out here now. I think I can get you a deal," basically. Wow. So for me, that began the process of me kind of taking ownership over my music as an artist, and being like, okay, like I am a solo artist, I guess. Yeah. And let me start pursuing that for real. So I moved back, and after a few weeks, I was supposed to be out there a year, and I told the people I would have fulfilled my contract, but they let me go, and pursue this opportunity. So I moved back to LA. All of a sudden, had a big time manager that managed, multiple Grammy-winning people from Rick Knowles to Greg Alexander to Danielle Brisbois, and just even like Rob Cavallo and people like that. Yeah. So I had all of a sudden some other people to kind of look at and like just see what that world is like. I mean, my dad wasn't really in the business of at that time yet of like writing songs and pitching them and stuff like that. And so that was a new learning experience for me again to meet other pro writers and people. Even some of those guys like Greg Alexander, who was from the band The New Radicals, people that, went from being a solo artist to making music for other people. And I kind of realized I'm somewhere there. I knew that then even. I was like, well, almost being an artist was like a plan B for me. It was like, I just want to make songs, whatever it takes to do that is what I'll do. I would rather just make songs than be Sting. Or something. Like that's how I thought of it in my head. I'm I don't want to be a solo artist like Sting. I want to, I just want to make good music. So did the rounds, met with labels over and again, did showcases, all that kind of stuff, almost got deals, got offered deals I didn't take, all that kind of stuff. And spent a couple years kind of going through that, and ended up at the end of that, I guess I want to say I parted ways with my manager, but I didn't. I think I just kind of scared him away, and then he let me go.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was a pretty spunky kid, I guess I would say, in terms of just, knowing what I wanted to do. And in my head, like, I knew how to record things, so let me record my own stuff. I don't want to get a deal and have someone produce me when I already produced myself, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's like, was it a mistake to be that stubborn? I don't know, because maybe, in my case, it led me to where I am.
Yeah.
But for, new artists, I'd probably suggest being more open-minded than I was at 19.
Hey, well, man, you were just following what you thought was who you were, right? And I think that's a big lesson too. I mean, it works both ways. And what a bizarre experience when that guy pretending to be you, but then it works out in some bizarre way at the back end. I guess he got to a point for him that for publishing and all that stuff, he probably just began to crap his pants that he finally had to let someone know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was something similar to that, where like, the manager wanted to connect him with someone to do like a remix of one of the tracks or something, and of course he had no files.
Yeah,
he couldn't re-sing my vocal, or anything like that. So, I think he was kind of just backed up against the wall a little bit, and yeah, I mean, it was horrible at the time, but it really kind of forced me to be more assertive about my own art. I guess.
Have you heard from that guy or know anything about him now?
Yeah, I mean, not in a while, not I guess a few years, thankfully, but for a while it seemed like every couple of years I'd get a message and something just saying, "Hey, just want to say how awesome your new music is," and
you should have wrote back. You mean yours?
Yeah, they're compliments and stuff, but I mean, we were, it doesn't excuse it that we were both young, but I cannot dwell on it anymore now that I'm older, and I know, where I landed with everything and stuff is awesome. So, I'm still not sure if I would have as aggressively, approached the music business and the business of creating music myself if I wasn't sort of forced into having to claim what I did.
So what was it like doing showcasing in that when you haven't really done any live shows before that? Was it nerve-wracking?
Yeah, and I'll be honest and say I don't think I ever really fully enjoyed the live experience. Both then doing stuff on my own, and then even later I was in that morphed into other bands that I had and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I think some people really, really get off on that, being on a stage and playing for people. And at least at the time, I didn't. It was kind of like redundant in my head. It's like if I was going to spend time, I want to spend time making new music, not playing the same song over and over after it's already been recorded. Yeah, or something. It didn't excite me as much as making something new. So. I think I also, being a young guy at the time, I took it all more seriously than I, needed to in some ways. I think my understanding of being an entertainer at this age is much more open-minded, and I realized just how much it involves being a really good entertainer. It's more than just making good songs and even playing them. Yeah, you got to learn how to really connect to an audience and. Make everyone feel part of the show and stuff. And I think then I just wanted to be like, let me just make these songs and play them, and people should just like them. And we had good experiences. I mean, there was a lot of, cool opportunities that came from that, but I don't think I ever got the high from it myself. So yeah, it kind of, after a while, it just felt like a grind of like, well, why am I doing this if I don't even like it? And, I don't know.
I can understand that. That makes perfect sense.
So I mean, I kind of got burned out on that. That from being in bands and stuff. I think after a while, I kind of got burnt out on chasing that side of the industry a little bit. And, it felt like a constant process of writing new songs, playing them for a bunch of industry people, having them be like, these are amazing. These are awesome. Like, what else you got? And me being like, I just like recorded those yesterday. Like, what do you mean? What else do I got? Like, that is the new stuff, and things. And I think even just all the, the bizarre feedback you get when you start dealing with A&R people and stuff of, it'd be even weird things like where it's like, this album's amazing. It sounds like a greatest hits album by an artist, but is that weird? Because every song sounds like a hit, or like a hit from a different era, or like the things like that. And in my head, I'd be like, you told me it sounds like a greatest hits album, yet you don't want to sign it because it sounds too much like a greatest hits album. Like, I know
it's full of hits.
And it was always still like, well, we love this, but what's it going to be like when you work with X producer and redo this song? And in my head, it was like, well, I already did this song. I already recorded and produced it. Like, and it's how I want it. So, I just couldn't wrap my head around, I think, some of those aspects. And I just felt like I was chasing my tail a lot. And, just kind of tapered off slowly. And I never even meant to, I think, come to a full stop with my band or anything. It just kind of happened. And then at the same time, I was always continuing to work with Dad, continuing to do, whether it's all Pro Tools editing or anything like that. And started to get other clients myself, just people that like my band and that were like, can we hire you to do this? Whoever it was, it could have been, someone's cousin's brother's boyfriend or something. I don't, I recorded everybody and anybody doing all kinds of music. And that evolved until eventually got some songwriting opportunities through Dad's projects. I co-wrote an Ozzy song when I was about maybe 23 or something.
Awesome.
And that was like the first time I had an actual cut with somebody else.
Yeah.
That was like, I guess, a notable person. I've could co-written songs before then, but nothing that would have gotten, nothing I could buy in Walmart.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that happened. And I realized I loved that. That was exciting. That was as exciting to me as anything I'd put out myself, even if it wasn't a single or a smash hit or anything. It was just like, okay, like people can record songs I do.
That's pretty awesome.
So it got that kind of all of a sudden got me moving that way. I didn't really get any work from that, to be honest. It's not like anyone really noticed that credit or anything like that. But with some of the other bands we worked with, they at least knew of it, and they knew that, okay, if Kane co-wrote an Ozzy song, maybe it's okay for him to pitch us some songs too.
Yeah.
So that actually led to both a song with Five Finger called Remember Everything that I co-wrote. And that ended up being like number 2 for several weeks on the active rock charts here. And then it led to me doing a co-written in this moment song called Blood, which I get work from to this day, still from that song and that record. And by then it was just becoming my life. It was taking over any time I had to even do my own stuff. So I just went full on into it, put my own work on the shelf for a minute, and just started to focus on how do I make awesome songs and for as many people as I can.
Yeah. So at that point, had you moved to Vegas out of LA?
Yeah. None of that really started for me until we moved to Vegas.
Yeah.
Of course, like the day we moved to Vegas was almost the day that Dad got the Ozzy call.
Yeah.
Which was in LA. So as soon as we moved to Vegas,
he had to keep going.
Yeah, he had to go back and forth all the time, and I'd go with him sometimes and do all the editing. And
he didn't really say that he was in Vegas, right?
No, no, they had no idea that he was coming there every week, just driving into town just for that and stuff.
Yeah,
and we both kept it that way. I still have a Los Angeles area code phone number because at the time our whole thing was, let's just not tell anyone we're moving and just try to still continue to do all the work we can. So,
yeah,
because we didn't know if all of a sudden being Vegas guys would not qualify us for LA work and stuff. Because if if someone wants to hire someone, they want someone down the street, not from another state, even if it's remote work. At the time it was just a potential inconvenience. So we just set up shop here. We had a home studio at the time, just in a bedroom. I guess my rig was in my bedroom. I took out a bunch of credit card advances and bought a Pro Tools rig off Craigslist.
Awesome.
And I could at least do my own edited work at home and all that kind of stuff. And just worked and wrote as much as I could.
So you're really always been pretty used to working on your own in a tight, small environment. You can see why you're comfortable with that. That's home to you, right from a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
Up into where you are now. A nice cozy environment just makes you comfortable. Probably that's your happy place.
Yeah, I mean, I love working with people and I get along with people and all that, but at the same time, there's kind of nothing like coming in by yourself for a day and just being in your own space. Like I said, doing what I've always done as a kid. I'll plug my DI guitar in and set my keyboard up and just jam with myself, program a beat, play something to that, just puzzle piece it to the next step. So yeah, no, that's when I'm in a big room, it's like that scene in Batman where they're sitting at the dinner table, and it's like this long dinner table, and she asks for the salt, and he has to slide the salt all the way across, or get up and go walk the salt down to the other side of the room. And that's how it feels when I'm in the big rooms. People are too far away. Like, even if I'm in writing sessions and stuff, it's like I like to be able to like hand the guitar back and forth, without having to get up and do it. I don't know. I guess I feel bad for some clients that probably would rather work in the big room, maybe sometimes. But for me, it's my happy place for sure. It's the place in the world where I'm the most in control, and every aspect I'm able to manipulate myself.
No, it's good. I know years ago I had a separate control room, and then my actual recording room with I have a couple of booths and the whole deal. And then one day I decided just to move all my gear into the main room. It's one of those things. So one of those yearly, let's change it up type of things.
Yeah.
And I haven't left since. I like being in the room with everybody else. It feels like when people hear I'm closer to them. You feel more part of the session, and when now it's just me lots of times, and I like that too. I mean, there's something I really have been enjoying this during COVID is you're just in here by yourself. You get a bunch of files, and there's not that real pressure that you have to get it done right then. You have to get things done, but it doesn't mean that you've got a band, you got to get everything, you've got time where you're paying, this whole pressure of all that stuff. It's nice to kind of be able to work with one person at a time or get some tracks in, and then you're able to just kind of absorb things way better than when you're trying to fly through stuff.
No, totally. I mean, I think that's one thing I've even been lucky for during these pandemic times is really that kind of education. I mean, everything I know about working on my own and working remotely, and just being already kind of streamlined for that process. Now the whole industry is moving that way, and people are, have their own home rigs, and they're just sending me a vocal to pop into something that I've already worked on over here, or doing Zoom writing sessions and things like that. And I think more and more the business is kind of moving into our bedrooms to an extent, and big studios like ours are more useful for people that actually need more old school setups, or let's say traditional things like jazz bands and big bands, or people that need to record a grand piano and things like that. But you can do so much just anywhere at home, and I think just because of our because of my education, doing it like that, it's like that's always just been the way. And the first even a couple Five Finger Death Punch records I worked on with Dad. We did those in our home studio with drums set up in the kitchen or in the dining room and mics in the kitchen and stuff. And we got some of the best sounds in those kind of environments. So for me, there was never that bias of like, we have to get to a pro space.
Yeah.
If anything, I get to pro spaces and I'm like, why doesn't this not sound as cool as the drum sound we used to have in our kitchen? Yeah. Or something. I mean, just, as we both know, I mean, getting an expensive piece of equipment or expensive instrument doesn't necessarily make the music better, or it isn't even always necessarily better. I mean, an expensive microphone isn't always the best thing for the job.
Yeah. It's funny. I just finished a track and I had Steve Warner, country guitar player, singer from Nashville, sing on it, and he played guitar on it. So he sent me his vocal tracks, and he was doing harmonies, and a singer from up here, Jim Witter, was singing the tune. And they had co-written the song. So I got the tracks, and I listened to them, and it's like, got to the chorus, and it's like, shit, they're distorted. you overdriven. Something was, probably the mic pre was just driven a little hot. Yeah. Performance is great. Just a little burry, it's just like, and I sat here, it's like, am I going to ask him to do them again? And it's like, I don't want to ask him to do them again. And so I decided I'd just work on it and see if I can get them slid in there at a nice spot that it's not too bad. And sure, not a single person who's listened to it in a mixed environment has commented, and I hear it every single time. I mean, I hear it in there, and not a single person has mentioned, hey, I think there's something a little funky in the chorus there with something.
I mean, that's amazing. And no, we've seen and done some crazy things like that too. I can think even recently, Dad did an acoustic track or an acoustic version of a song for a band called Dead, and can't remember the song title at the moment, but the singer recorded his vocal into his iPad microphone.
Oh, no way.
And that's the vocal that's on radio.
That's awesome.
And it's, even when I heard it, I'm like, well, how does this even sound as good as it does? It make,
Yeah.
But that just goes to show, I mean, you mix things right. We have so many tools now to smooth some of those things out or to fudge some of those things a little bit. And
it's probably compressing that. I mean, it's compressing in there and the whole deal, right?
Yeah. And it was supposed to be sort of an acoustic-y live vocal anyway. So it sounds, raw and kind of naked, but still surprisingly compressed good and stuff.
That's awesome.
And that just show, I mean, we've done other stuff where we've used like pieces of a voicemail in a song as a verse vocal and stuff like that. And I think, I mean, that's where, to me, I've never been concerned with what the rules are ever.
No.
When it comes to recording, one, because I never knew them in the first place.
Yeah.
And then by the time I found them out, they didn't apply to me because I'd already broken so many of them. Well, so even now, I mean, I'm what I tell people, and probably an anti-purist, if anything. I will use everything in the kitchen sink, and I don't care. Nothing's off limits. The only way I'm not going to do something is probably the traditional way.
Well, how many people nowadays listen to music in front of a set of studio monitors or have a great home stereo system at home? Remember being younger and wanting, nice stereo system, nice big speakers and whatever, something real hi-fi. And now it's just, you listen a lot on AirPods and
wherever's convenient.
Yeah.
Really. And I'm guilty of the same thing. I mean, here I am, and a quote unquote pro audio engineer, and I listen to my music on my wireless AirPods, and at home I got my I got the nice Sonos speakers, but most of the time I'm just listening in mono with speakers splashed across my house in different areas, and that's how I'm listening at home too. I mean, I'm not unlike those times as a kid where I'd go to like my grandma's stereo or something, someone that I knew had a good stereo, and I'd sit between the speakers and I'd really listen. Now everything is, like a soundtrack to whatever you're doing and stuff. And
yeah,
I think people's listening habits lean more that way. And so I like to reference my music that way. I know if it sounds good on my AirPods and on my, mono Sonos speakers at home, then it's good.
Yeah, there's always that spot, that crappy spot that you have to check to make sure it feels good. I mean, it's not always the $50,000 speakers. It's the $5 speaker that really makes the difference on whether your mix sounds good or not.
Totally. That's why even actually I love these new Slate headphones. I think called
These?
DSX. Yep. See, you got the nice label and stuff on yours. I think mine are the beta version, so
yeah.
I don't even have the nice side decals yet. But
they're awesome.
But they're cool, and a lot of people have hit me up and asked me questions about them because have seen I have them, and they know I use lots of Slate stuff, and they're always wondering, do they sound like really great and all that kind of stuff, and like they do. They're great pair of headphones. But what I love most about them is actually the bad sounding environments that I can monitor. So rather than me having to do a bounce and go listen on my AirPods, I can just select the AirPods setting, and I can listen to the car setting, and I can listen to the boombox setting and the club setting. I don't care how NRG sounds or how Howie Weinberg's mastering studio sounds. I'm already in a good space that sounds great. I need to know how it sounds in the real world across a range of consumer devices, because that's who I'm making music for. So I love them particularly for that. It's like people ask, people always want to know about the awesome models on them and how good those sound. And I'm like, I actually listen to them for all the lowest quality settings you could listen for.
I'm the same way. I have good monitors. It sounds good in here, and I want to hear what it sounds like in the car. Or that was the big difference. The first mix I did, and I was pretty well, I thought, done my mix. And then they came in, and I popped them on, and I spent a bunch of time just really listening to different things. And then I thought, let's throw my mix in them. And I started making a bunch of changes, and then I realized I hadn't really done a separate save. I was kind of like, oh, crap. Did I dig myself into a spot I can't get out of now, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, we'll see. And man, I couldn't believe the difference in my mix after I had gone through a couple of those different models, especially the Tesla model was the one that for me, I tend to kind of go back to all the time. And that's the thing. And I barely go to, the real pro studio. And I don't really find those rooms too exciting for me. I mean, it sounds fine.
It's like a random thing I might just check for a second, but for me, I want to know they sound across.
It's almost the opposite of what you're mixing with speakers. You mix with good speakers, and then every once in a while you want to hear what it sounds like crappy. But those headphones, you listen to a lot of crap, and then every once in a while you listen to what it sounds like when it's good. Flip on the monitor, say, yeah, that's sounding better, and back to the crap again. But yeah, I think they're awesome. I can't wait till they come out with more models and stuff too.
Yeah, I'd love to see, I'd love to hear more things. I mean, even give me a good MacBook Pro speakers, one. I'd even love to hear like a television set one or something.
Google Home Pod.
Even things like a movie theater or something like that. I'd be, I want to, call me crazy, but I'll even take one like a mall setting or a grocery store setting or something would be great. I want to hear
sitting in Cheesecake Factory setting
where music's actually heard. Yeah, when you're in the gym running on the treadmill, hearing the music overhead, the 24-hour fitness speakers, that's where people are listening to the music.
That's actually a great idea, like being with ambience around you, with your music kind of tucked away, so you hear what pops out and what doesn't pop out, and that would be great. No,
totally.
Like a mono Google HomePod speaker, something like that. Like
Yeah.
one, what does that sound like? That's the model I think would be really great too. Just because a lot of people just have a single, I buy those things. I always buy them a pair.
Google Homes and the Alexas and totally.
You wonder what the average of people have them in stereo, or probably very few. They'll have just one in one room and one other one in another room, and you just turn them on and you walk around and there it is. And you need to know what that sounds like, collapsed down into model and a little speaker.
No, totally. I mean, everything sounds good coming out of my studio space, pro speakers and all that stuff. But when I'm dialing a mix in, the things I hear the most are when you're listening to those settings and you're like, oh, maybe the guitars don't collapse to mono right, and I need to do something there, or maybe for some reason the hi-hat sticks out way too loud on all those settings or something like that, and you just gives you a good baseline to tighten things up. I mean, that's what the headphones did immediately. First mix, I'm like, did my mix before I had the headphones, put the headphone simulations on, and then tweaked from there, and just totally just tightened it up, and flattened out some problem areas and smoothed some things over. And I love any tool these days that can help me quickly make something better, even if it's just 5%.
Yeah.
But quick and dependably enough. I don't need like some magic fairy dust to totally change my mix. I need to just make everything just a little bit better. So anytime I can find whether it's a piece of equipment or a plugin, that it's as simple as almost just turning it on and fiddling with it for a few minutes, and you're better than wherever you were. I love those kinds of things. Yeah.
And I think they got a lot of, good write-ups right off the bat, but a lot of people there's always people who are going to say crappy things about them, but it's whatever tool you have to make whatever you do work for you. And it doesn't matter if it costs $10,000 or costs $10. If it works, it works. And, I think there's too many people too worried about, everything about how good every little piece of the equipment is. And sometimes you don't always need that. You need a few of those pieces. But they don't all have to be that.
Totally. I mean, same thing with the Slate microphone, which I use a lot.
Yeah, I got that. Too.
People always send me questions like, does whatever model sound exactly like the real thing, and blah 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 blah. For me, I don't even care. Like the answer might be yes in most cases, but all I care about is, does it sound good? Yeah. I don't care if I use this C12 model and it sounds exactly like an actual C12. I'm just concerned about, does it sound like a vocal sound I want, and does it sound good? In my head, I'd rather it be better than a C12, for example. But if I can't, if I can scroll through a range of professional sounding things and be like, any one of these are awesome, that's great. I'm not, in that way, I'm not a purist where I'm like, oh, something's missing about this. Anything I want to get out of something, I can EQ, I can tweak. I think that's just my sort of guerrilla style, bedroom style of working, that, I don't care if I got to, or in some cases I figured out workarounds for things maybe people just haven't figured out those workarounds for, or don't want to have to work that way. For me, I've just always worked in a way where I can manipulate anything, and my opinion is, you can give me one microphone and a laptop and I can make a rock record on it. I don't care which microphone or which laptop.
So when you record the Slate with the Slate microphones, are you recording just flat in and then deciding later what model you want to use?
I mean, I might have the model I want, or the model I think I want, already on, or sometimes maybe a more general vocal template already going. That's not too extreme one way or the other. And then I tweak from there, and I find there's 2 or 3 models I like the most usually, but it's not the same every time. And sometimes I want a different model on background vocals than I want on the lead vocal, and just certain things that kind of allow room for more texture and just more, I guess, nuance between all the parts and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm never committing to anything, and I still change things right to the end all the time, and I love that. I mean, after using that mic long enough, the first time I went to mixing something random that I had that didn't use that mic, I went to like go change the microphone setting, and I realized, oh yeah, I can't do that with a normal microphone, and it, that almost becomes a barrier in my head of just, I want maximum flexibility all the time, and I love that. I also like things to be as dummy proof as they can be. I mean, you talk about the guy that had the vocals clipping. This is the kind of microphone you can recommend to anybody, and as long as you're not clipping on the way in, you can do whatever later. But people that start getting these, complex chains up front that maybe are, sometimes it can be even a good chain, but maybe it just doesn't work that day for that source, and they get so used to being like, well, we got to go through this compressor and this limiter, and they give you something just too processed and too, I hate that.
Yeah, you can't pull that out.
As a mixer, as a producer, I want the driest, most flexible source possible, and I can do all that stuff later. And so yeah, I recommend it for lots of clients and even remote people I work with remotely. It's just so dummy proof. I don't got to explain anything except make sure it doesn't go in the red.
Yeah,
and it's one knob, and we could add the preamp and the mic and the compression and everything later.
Yeah, it's the microphone. And anyone asks me what should I get, unless they have on stupid budget, it's always get the slate mic. I mean, it's so many options with that, and it sounds great. It sounds great on its own.
Yeah, I mean, and until you can make good things come out of that, like, how can you even expect to make good things come out of the actual mics? Because there's so much more, easy to mess up, and just, I mean, just from owning a place with lots of vintage equipment, things are always going down. We're constantly having to get mics serviced and sent out and all that stuff. I know if my slate mic goes down, I can go to, I can probably call Steven up and get him to send me one. But worst case, I could go down to Guitar Center and get one, and it's going to sound exactly the same as the one that I have.
Yeah.
And not be like, oh, the 47 sounded different on this day than it did 3 months later than it did, when we got something replaced in it, and all that kind of stuff. So I like that reliability and consistency and just flexibility. I don't have to think about it. None of my clients are patient enough to want to stand there in front of a mic while I set up 9 different microphones, going through 2 different preamps, going through 4 different compressor options to figure out which one works.
Yeah.
They just want to sing, and this allows them to do that, and allows me to not have to worry the whole time that I choose the wrong microphone or the wrong microphone for the part. Even, I mean, I work with a lot of singers that, go within one song, go from whispering to singing to screaming. So they're all very different treatments a lot of the time, and this just allows me to worry about one thing. Now, if someone didn't have the $600, $700, $800 or whatever it costs for the slate mic, I'd suggest the mics you and I are using right now, which is an SM7B. Just good, versatile, hard to mess up, sounds good in a lot of voices. You kind of can't, kind of dummy proof in that sense. You kind of can't go wrong for the $300 or $400 this costs. But next step up, I'd go to the slate mic, and I wouldn't even worry about going past that unless you just know exactly what mic you want for your voice, and you're like Mariah Carey or Celine Dion or something, and you're like, I have to have this one mic all the time going through this particular chain.
Yeah,
I'm not that guy. I mean, I'll change my chain every song, every band, whatever I think it requires.
Yeah, makes sense. I have my whole house kit mic'd up with slate mics, and the little guys on toms, and I even have the little guy and the big guy on the kick drum, and it's surprising. And I always forget model numbers, whatever they want to say the little guy is. I always call him little guy, big guy. How much bottom end there is in the little slate mic. It sounds pretty good.
We recently just did a whole bunch of different drum samples different kits, different settings, different setups and all that. And my favorite ones were actually the one set that we did with just the slate mics.
Yeah.
And that was an experiment for Dad, because he had never even used the vocal mic that I use all the time. And I was like, you should try this. Get the VRS box for like a portable rig. He went up to the cabin and recorded them in our cabin.
Yeah.
Just in the living room, and for the best sounding drum samples of all the ones we've done.
Awesome.
not going through the SSL, not going through all the vintage gear here, and they sound great. They're flexible.
Yeah.
Just, it's killer. I mean, if I was starting all over again and literally had nothing, and just a couple $1,000s or whatever to get going, I would say get the VRS, get the VSX, get the slate microphones, and there's no reason you can't make an awesome song with that.
Yeah, I agree. I actually took a bunch of the little guys on some live gigs, and they sound great in front of guitar amps for a bunch of things. And I've told a bunch of live guys, buy a bunch of these. I mean, they're super cheap, and they sound really great, and they're very discreet. They get out of your way, and try them. Everyone thinks they're a recording, but just straight out of the box, just on their own without the processing, they still sound really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any mics that are probably cheaper or as cheap that provide that much like versatility, and quality right outside the box. I mean, it's like, maybe a 57 is the only thing at that price point or something that is a traditional quality mic, but these are obviously so much more than that. And I think in the world, we talk about trends and stuff, and again, for so many years, a mixer or a producer mixing his own stuff, let alone mastering his own stuff or anything else, was kind of like a taboo and something that a lot of people weren't doing. Now we're seeing more of that. We're seeing producers become mixers of their own stuff.
Yeah.
So for someone that does mix their own stuff, that's just the ultimate. It's the ultimate flexibility. It's the ultimate, manipulate. You can manipulate everything great, easy to do, sounds great, easy to set up. I can't say enough good things about that kind of technology. I mean, that's the stuff that really excites me moving forward, is just what else can we do? Like,
yeah,
that's the stuff I dreamed about my whole life, was like, how could I have a whole recording studio and one little 2-space rack?
Yeah.
And that's where we are. And you got access to every mic and every console and every tape machine emulation and all that stuff with just, a handful of plugins.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's not expensive. I mean, that's the great thing. It's not as if the slate microphone or any of that type of thing is a $10,000. In the theory, it should be. I mean, it's sort of like, for what it gives you and all those options, compared to what it would take to buy all those microphones, the model microphones and that, and
maintain them.
Yeah, exactly. It's just an amazing price. My drag, my setup, because I told you earlier that I kind of switched to using Luna. I have a couple of the VRS 8s in my rack, plus I have my Apollos, and I used to have them all running together. And now, like with Luna, you just can't do that. You got to stay within the Universal Audio environment and use the Apollos, just to get the no latency stuff happening and all that stuff. So unfortunately they're most of the time sitting there. But I'm hoping that there's going to be a way for me to get them in the chain as well. But they're not going anywhere. I'm not selling them this thing right there. I know they're going to work their way back in there, but it's interesting. I mean, all that, even take with things that a Luna is doing now. And I think that a lot of the other guys are going to look at that and kind of go, oh, we need to really step up our game and see whether we can treat this more like a console and give those type of gain structures, and the everything just works more like you're sitting in front of a console, but you're in front of your screen. It feels way more like that. So, but yeah, it's exciting how every year it's, I see you have a Kemper behind you and all that stuff. I mean, every year it just gets to a point where you're just like, what's going to happen next? And it's pretty wild. It's pretty neat.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like even just the last couple, so many things have gotten so much better, and there's so many exciting plugins coming out that just do amazing things really easily that I never even would have thought about. I think my hope is that we're moving past doing all the the same emulations over and over of the same things. I don't care. I don't care about that stuff as much. I just want quality and functionality and new tools to be available. So I don't need another copy of a particular compressor or another copy of a particular EQ. I love things like Fab Filter that is EQ. That's so many bands, so easy. Automation bands within it, a mix knob within it.
Yeah.
Like, those kinds of things, or even a plugin like Soothe.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That just seems to be like I can put it on anything and make almost anything a little better with it.
Yeah.
And really quickly and really easily. And it just, I want to see more. We're seeing lots of cool tools that are now, to me, the next generation of stuff. It's like we went through the process of like, how do we take all the stuff we're currently using and make it digital? And now I'm hoping we're kind of moving on to the next thing. We don't need to keep copying mics from 40 years ago. I don't think. I mean, I've always kind of, and I know that's my philosophy too. And so I clash with certain, usually purists on lots of these things, because I'm just not romantic about anything. But the way I think about it is like, the Beatles weren't thinking about like what kind of mics Frank Sinatra was using on their guitars, or what kind of guitars people were playing 40 years before them. Led Zeppelin weren't thinking about that. They were all using the current technology of their time, trying to push forward.
Yeah.
And they were all in a race to use whatever was the most current. And then for like, it feels to me like my whole childhood and first 20 years of being alive, it was all like this race to be like, how do we do things how everyone used to do and keep that magic going? But I just never understood, why should things end there? Why can't I give me a guitar that sounds like how I imagine guitar sounding in 2040, not in 1940.
Yeah.
That's just the young rebellious guy in me, I guess. But from a philosophical perspective, it's just always, I just want to see technology grow, and I think there's more creativity to be had as the tools expand. Especially into tools where it's like there's plugins now where you can't even recreate them in a external environment, or even honestly traditional plugins, like a tape emulation. Or console emulation. The way I might mix is I might have a different console emulation for my drums than I do for my guitars, than I do on my mix, and a different tape setting or speed for different or bias for different aspects of the mix. And if I wanted to recreate that mix with those real things in real life, I would need like 5 consoles in a room and 3 different tape machines. And it would take me a month to do probably a mix that I do in, 8 hours.
Yeah. I know. It's true. Everyone thinks, well, you have to use all Neve or all API or whatever you want. And why can't you just have, API on drums, Neve on this, whatever you want on that? They don't all have to be across the board.
Totally. So I like to approach, even when I'm using a traditional tool or a tool that we use in a particular way, I like to always think about, how can I try something else? Let me put 3 of those plugin instances in a row back to back and set them all differently and see what happens. And maybe those are things sometimes that I find people that are too romantic about how they used to be used and stuff aren't even thinking about. They're just still trying to use those things in the same way. And I always encourage, like, try every combination of things on anything. And that's the great thing about being in the box. You can't break anything. Worst case, get too many plugin instances going and things crash and you got to restart. But you're not going to lose anything the way you would if you were actually doing those things in the real world and bouncing things down to tape and all that kind of stuff. So it's I always encourage people break the rules, and that's how you'll find different stuff, even accidentally.
Yeah.
Sometimes what's not supposed to work is the thing that works best.
Well, I've always said too, and it goes with instruments, it goes with gear, and everyone's trying to emulate something from 40, 50, 60 years ago. And with today's technology and everything you're doing, why can't we make something that's better than an Eve preamp or better than a whatever, right? It always seems like everyone's chasing, like you said, we don't need another SSL channel strip emulation. There's 50 of them to choose from. And why isn't there a new strip, combination of some new console that nobody's heard of before, right? And that ends up being the thing.
Totally. And even the funny thing is I feel like lots of people that even use that stuff haven't even used the original thing, including myself, myself included. But, I could never understand how people could be purists to something that they never actually experienced firsthand themselves anyway.
Yeah. I know. It's like a wish list, right?
Mental gymnastics that I don't quite understand. So, I mean, even when I'm using those things, that's why I'm not romantic about them, because I don't know how you actually used a tape machine. I never had to use one. I just put a plugin instance on and try every setting until I realize which one I like the best. I don't even know, what it means or what I'm doing or why it's wrong or why it's right. I just know I turn the knob all the way this way and I like it.
Yeah. I know. That's what it comes down to. It's great. So as far as, since we're kind of on plugins and talking that stuff, what's kind of your go-to 2 or 3 top plugins that you like to go to, you seem to pull up all the time?
Yeah, sure. I think over the past year or two, I've really got into the Kush plugins that they make. Particularly, I love their Hammer EQ. I love their AR1 compressor. I think it's like a Moo style compressor or something. And their Clairphonic plugins really quite amazing. Their plugins were so good to me that was I was completely in the box before I bought their plugins. And then I got their plugins and was like, these are so good. How much better can it get? So I got, honestly, hardware versions of most of the gear. I think every piece of gear that they have in my rack. And I have one rack here that's all Kush stuff: Clairphonic, Electra, Omegas, Tweakers, Fatzos, all that.
Yeah.
And they just sound so good. I find it really kind of was a missing link for me of wanting things to sound less digital, but still like separated. So it's like I find both the plugins and the gear kind of give me some extra what I at least imagine to be analog style kind of glue.
Yeah.
And maybe make it feel like there's a little more electricity inside some things. Without being like all of a sudden it sounds like it's like tape or old or something. It's almost like I get some extra low end warmth from lots of their stuff, and I get like this extreme awesome high end that never sounds harsh. I can like take some of their things and just crank them full on to the almost what should be like the harshest setting, and it's still just not unpleasing to me. So I find it's just maybe it's a certain kind of saturation, and I'm generally, I think, drawn more to tools that can saturate things differently. I think that's just part of my style and how I like everything a little crunchy, everything a little distorted, everything just I don't know, just what I like.
Yeah.
So they really allow me to do that. Obviously, I mentioned Soothe earlier, and Fab Filter EQ. I mean, those are for sure staples.
What do you use Soothe on? Do you just kind of throw it on anything?
I've put on everything from vocal to a harsh overhead cymbal to master.
Yeah, I haven't tried it on a master before. I got to try that.
I was afraid to.
Yeah.
I mean, a tool like that, I think, can be a dangerous tool in the wrong hands anyway. And it's the kind of tool that, just actually like the clairphonic thing that they have by Kush, where like it kind of makes everything sound better, but deceivingly better, where it's easy to go too far, or it's, just like any DS or a dynamic EQ, it's easy to cut too much out or just overdo something. So I try to use it sparingly, but the fact like that Soothe has like a mix knob and just a lot of good settings for really just using it subtly. Like I'm not doing extreme things on my master, because I don't like to do anything too extreme on my master. If I have to do something too extreme on my master, I feel like there's something wrong with my mix.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to go to the source to fix something rather than do it in mastering. But if it's just a little extra low end woof that you need to get out, or a little harsh high end build up or something like that, it's really cool. And it does that really easily. And I really like they have the Delta mode on there, where you can click that and just hear what it's taking out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I use it most of the time, is I just set it on the Delta mode and just try to take out just the stuff I don't want.
Yeah.
And use it that way. So I can kind of use it as a de-esser sometimes. It's great on any harsh, like cymbal kind of build up and stuff like that. I haven't really used it on guitar or bass, but I think there's really no rules with it, other than how many instances you can functionally use on your system at once. But
yeah.
I got a good system, so I don't have to worry about that. Anytime I've done like mixed courses, people are like, I would never be able to put as many plugins on it in a session as you're doing right now with no problems. But yeah, I mean, the most important piece of gear to me is my computer and its ability to run a lot of instances of plugins.
It's pretty exciting now with the new Mac chips, and what that's going to change for processing for us, like in the studio. So once they get built out their pro rigs, it's going to be insane. I mean, I think it's just going to be just crazy, the amount of.
Yeah, I mean, it's already crazy. I mean, I've one of the new, whatever, cheese grater Macs.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much stuff I can run on it and just never run out. And how little now we're even having to use like HDX card or anything like that for, like, I have one, but most of the plugins don't even use it anymore. And you used to need that to not put so much, to not tax your system so hard. And nowadays it's like, well, I can tax my system as much as I want, that I don't even need the HDX card. And I know Dad's even doing a lot of work at home now, just on a native rig basically, and it's as seamless as he needs it to be. And and I want to do more of that too. Put some portable rig together and just go up to the cabin or go on a vacation, but still do some work easily when I need to.
It's nice to be able to leave your work environment for another environment, because you spend so much time there. And I think that's what goes into, a yearly changeover of the studio layout or whatever. It's just so it feels fresh. Or
it's like moving the furniture around in your apartment after you've lived there long enough.
Yeah, it's all the same thing, just making it more comfortable.
Totally. Well, I mean, I'm constantly, even if it's just small things like changing the kind of mood lights I have, or even the scent of a candle. It's like there's a particular scent I've liked, that I like more than others, but it got to the point where I'm like, I just want a new smell.
Yeah.
I don't have to. It doesn't have to smell better. I just I need just a different space and a different energy. And I mean, even within a session, it's like just cleaning your studio makes it feel better.
I know.
Just even if you're fixing stuff you can't see, like the cables behind your desk or something like that, like it gives you some different peace of mind. And I don't know, for me, those things all help. Even with guitars I have visible or things like that. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not even using them. I'm like, let me just go put 5 different guitars here, just so I can see different stuff in front of me and feel, inspired by something different.
I remember when I came to the studio there to to do interview with your dad, and he's taking me through, and he said, "Oh, this is Kane Studio," and he says, and he kind of said, "I don't know what it's going to look like when we go in." It's probably going to be a little messy, and sure enough, yeah, it's messy.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I mean, when I'm in the middle of stuff, I kind of get into mad scientist mode and stuff, but that's part of the reason I redid lots of stuff, because I kept finding myself in that position.
Yeah.
With just too many patches in the patch bay, and I had the whole spaghetti going on, coming out of it, and just crisscrossing chords across the floor and stuff. So now I got it, so everything can be put away nicely, but still set up and flexible without having to Frankenstein some things across the room to do something. But I mean, generally, I do like to always at least start a project with a clean space and
see where it goes.
have everything neat, have everything ready to go. Yeah.
So now with what you're doing, what's your favorite? Are you still, obviously you're writing, you're producing, you're engineering, you're doing all that stuff. Do you have one now that if you had to choose, you can only do one of those things that you would still grab it? Would it be still songwriting, or is it, what's the one that really makes you excited now?
I think songwriting is the most fun, as far as just pure satisfying my own creativity.
Yeah.
Because it's the most, to me, it's the most creative part of the process. Not that the other, producing or mixing isn't, but those are more technical exercises in some ways. At least at this point, it's more like when I get to the mixing stage, it's just at that point a sequence of steps I got to go through to get to get something done. Whereas writing is just still more unpredictable. It's I don't know where I'm going to end up at the end of a day when I'm sitting down to make something new.
Yeah.
Whereas a mix is more me imagining where I want to end up and then just following the baby steps through to end up at that spot.
Yeah. It's like a process.
You might run into a couple surprises, but maybe not as many as just coming in with a blank slate, being like, a certain artist needs a song or something, and let me just open up an empty session with a click track and plug a guitar in, and just start looking for accidents, looking for random happy accidents. So I think songwriting is the most fun. At the same time, I think mixing, if we're talking from a professional point of view, is maybe the most easy to streamline a business from now. And I find I'm doing, obviously since the pandemic and stuff too, I've been doing more and more mixing just in general, just pure mixing, rather than when I'm producing, I'm engineering, co-writing, producing, mixing, and mastering. When I'm mixing, I'm just mixing and mastering.
Yeah.
So it's nice too, even just to be able to hear other people's songs. Sometimes not to be the one responsible for getting under every piece of the hoods. It's kind of a nice exercise too. And I learn things as a mixer that mixing other people's things that I maybe don't have to learn when I mix my own stuff, just because I'm dealing with my own sources and stuff. I'm not trying to, take maybe a undesirable source and make it sound nice. It's a different process. So, professionally, I feel like I'm doing more and more mixing. But I think writing is where it's always been where it's at for me. And
when you're getting tracks, or if as a mixer, tracks are being sent to you, what's the one thing that always seems to be the biggest problem? Is there always seems to be one thing that's bothering you, or is it the guitars that always this, or a vocal that's always that, or is it just depends on the project type of thing?
I think for me personally, it can be both. Sometimes the band's doing too much stuff or having too much stuff, even including too many tracks. Like, it's funny to me when people send me a guitar session and there's 3 different mics on each channel and they're trying to balance them all, and with a room mic or something like that too. And most of the time I'm just, let me just take the 57, mute the other ones, not even, things like that, where I'm always, compared to my own stuff where I'm just so like, I've just got the one source and I'm just using my Kemper and I got a left and a right. And it's so easy for me that way. And I look at other people's setups sometimes, and it just seems so complex to still not get it sometimes as good of a sound as I can get it plugging into the Kemper.
Yeah.
I think the worst maybe when people don't send me dry sources. Like if they have a DI, if they didn't record a DI period, that kind of sucks because it gets to the point where you can only do what you can do with what you got. Versus if I have that DI, I can kind of reinvent the whole sound and re-envision the track on a more fundamental level. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think with if there's anything else.
The three microphone thing, I just dealt with that not too long ago. Same thing, where you listen and it's like you put all three of them up, and it's like, well, that sounds horrible. And then you go through and it's like, listen to each one. Yeah, I like that one. Get rid of the other ones.
Yeah, most of the time people have that kind of stuff out of phase, and you're not even hearing like it. Just I don't see the purpose. I see why it's maybe a traditional way that some people taught at schools and read in a book and seemed like a good way to get lots of options at one point in time. But nowadays, just get me a good close source and I can add some extra room and I can add some extra space. And even things like delays and reverbs, I'd rather add them in myself than have them baked in.
Yeah.
I guess maybe other than that, maybe the worst or most challenging thing that bugs me the most is maybe just people's timing and tuning. Because I find very often something might sound okay in the reference when you're not hearing everything clearly.
Yeah.
But once I mix it and everything's super clear and I got some, supporting samples and things like that on the drums, then you can hear the problems and you can hear the flams and you can hear, you all of a sudden realize that the background vocal isn't perfectly timed to the lead vocal because you can actually hear the background vocal and, stuff like that. And whereas I don't know how everyone does it, but as a mixer, I generally don't do timing or tuning unless if they need it, I'll, get my assistant hired to do it before it gets to me or something like that. But I'm not gonna time your drummer when I'm mixing. So there's times where you have to go back even to the client at the end of the mix and be like, if you got a couple $100 extra, I could get my guy to fix this, that, and the other thing if you want. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Some people just aren't bothered by it or don't hear it the same way, or maybe that roughness around the edges feels pleasant to them even. I'm a little more robotic and clinical these days. I mean, I've just been doing it so long. I just hear every word that's out a little bit. That's all I hear.
Timing really bugs me. It's a tough one. Thank goodness you can fix it easy nowadays, but
yeah. But I mean, there's so many tools for that too, and but it's easy to do wrong. It's easy to mess up. But, everyone's sessions, I think, are getting more elaborate and complicated, even beyond their scope to manage the sessions themselves. Because it's so easy to just press record again and record another performance, or to go fix something, but not necessarily fix it right. Whether even if you're doing it manually or with a plugin, you can use vocal line. It might get still some stuff wrong, and at the end of the day, it's your ear, not the gear, right? So if you just don't have that, if you just haven't heard it a million, some stuff a million times, you might not be able to tell. I mean, most of my clients can't tell. I would say almost every client isn't going to be able to tell if something's 150 samples early or late or something like that. But I'm that one that's like the and is that one word. It's just little rushed, or I can hear the it's always even things like the tails of words to me that people always overlook. People are good at timing the start of a note, but not realizing on that double that they played an 8th note here, but a 16th note note there, or all the T's of the 8 takes they have of a vocal all end at a different spot, so it's just one big T flam, or those kinds of things that I think you only kind of get by just doing it a lot. And I know my own self, just how many different evolutions there's been of kind of my ears getting to the next point of like, oh, now I hear this, now I hear this, now I hear this. There's still tons of stuff I probably don't realize I don't hear yet that one day hopefully I will. But that's the 10,000 hours part of it that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, I've taken a bunch of your time. It's been awesome. Maybe we'll just finish up on one question here.
Sure.
Do you have a long-term plan? Do you see what yourself is going to be, or what you're going to be doing in the next 10 years or so? Or you just kind of take it as it comes?
I think I've always tried to just be reactive to the opportunities I have and the things I have access to. And, so I always focus on that more than even what my own goals are. I think I've set more goals for myself than I've reached, but I've reached many goals that I never even set for myself.
Yeah.
So I like to just be responsive to the game I'm playing, I guess. At the same time, I see myself moving more into developing more things myself, maybe even focusing more on the business side of starting my own boutique record label of sorts, and being able to take some of that music I start and with myself or whoever, and actually follow through on the process of putting it out. I think sometimes working within a particular genre, like rock music, or even let alone, let's say, for lack of a better word, commercial rock music.
Yeah.
I find myself dealing with a lot of the same challenges over and over, and just not having always as many opportunities to explore other challenges. So I think I'm always at this stage looking forward to just different ways I can challenge myself, whether it's doing different kinds of music, different kinds of setups, even when it comes to just the evolution of recording. And I could see myself in 10 years not even needing as commercial of it, or in 5 years even not needing as commercial of a spot, and just having some cool portable rig in a box. And if I need to go somewhere, I go there or just ship them that box and have a guy on the ground set it up, and I'm monitoring it remotely from somewhere that I want to be.
Yeah.
and just having more chances to just really explore creativity. And when your goal is to write every day, is to kind of do the same thing and be like, oh, try to write a top 10 rock song today. You just do a lot of the same. You have the same ingredients in the pot, the same tools in the kitchen.
Yeah.
The same customer as yesterday, and I want to expand on that more. And I think even maybe do a lot more Canadian music, to be honest. I mean, I grew up with so many Canadian bands and regional things, and things that maybe once I left, I didn't, don't have access to those same talents and those same, aesthetics and kinds of things. And there's a part of me, I think, the longer I've been away, the more I even want to get back to my roots.
Yeah.
let's say.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think with going through this whole pandemic is really changing all that, changing your thought of everything, and how you approach things, and how you can do things more remote and distant, and
Absolutely.
make that work, because you've had to, and all of a sudden people realizing, oh, I actually can do this.
I mean, I've had 2 in-person clients since January.
Yeah.
So, but I've worked constantly, and remotely, internet, just doing mixes by myself and stuff. So it's proven to me that, like, wow, I could literally live anywhere I want. I could be in the forest, as long as I have internet.
Yeah.
I can do what I do.
Yeah.
So you do think differently, and I think looking ahead, it's just how do you enjoy life more while doing what you do. And I'm not in the same rat race that I was 10 or 15 years ago. So now I can kind of, start to carve up my own rules and my own terms a little bit, and just find that happy balance.
Awesome. Well, it's a nice place to be. And I think with someone like yourself, and I'm probably very much the same, your creative brain just doesn't stop churning. So I mean, you can take mixing so far, you can take producing so far, and then all of a sudden I find myself, I went down a rabbit hole of video stuff the other day.
Yeah.
I was trying to learn all this, and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? I don't want to be a video guy. But all of a sudden I just like, oh, maybe I could make my podcast cooler. And I went down this rabbit hole of like, I need to get this light, I need to do this, and I need to get this camera. And it's like, no, I don't want to be a video guy. I'm an audio guy.
I'm in the same boat right now with I got some photo lights set up so I look nice and lit.
I know. It's
I wasn't worried about that stuff, 2 years ago or more, and now I do some educational things and classes and stuff now and again too. So I'm in the same boat, looking at video stuff, looking at web stuff, looking at different platforms of how to do it all, and how do I put a podcast together and a video together and all those things. And it's fun. I love learning. I love not doing the same thing every day. So
yeah, I'm the same way.
That's why I do everything. Because if I get bored of mixing, I can just go write a song. If I get bored of writing a song, I can go mix something. And just gotta keep it interesting.
Well, it's been awesome having you on the podcast, and I really hadn't had much chance to chat before. But your family's great. Your dad's awesome. Corey, I've known for a long time, and so yeah, it's great that you're all doing well, and you guys work very, very hard, and it shows. And you've got a great spot there, and appreciate you coming on to the podcast. It's been awesome. So good luck with everything.
Anytime.